It's another day in America. Another day in America. Welcome to the America at 250 podcast, devoted to enabling us to see and feel America through the eyes and hearts of others, and as a result, take concrete steps to make America truly great. I'm Kevin Caldwell. And in order to pursue the purpose of this podcast, throughout the project, I'll be inviting a very diverse set of guests to share how they would answer what would make America great. It only seems fitting during this year in which America turns 250. Unanswered questions, 250 years and counting, we're still waiting in America. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the America at 250 podcast. This is my second interview, if you will, with Gabriella Gutierrez y Muhs, and we're going to pick up sort of where we left off last time. But for the benefit of people who maybe they're just now joining the podcast, maybe they missed the last episode, Gabriella, just briefly introduce us to yourself again. Who is this person I'm talking to?
I'm a Chicana poet. I'm an academic, a literary critic. I write about books and language. I'm also a linguist. And my interest in language also has led me to becoming a poet and a writer. And words are very important for me because I grew up as a bilingual. I was a child farm worker, actually. So those people that you see working in the fields before, now we see mostly adults, but before there were children, and I was there with my family from birth on in different parts of the Southwest. And my parents were cannery workers and field workers, and my father was totally illiterate. My mom taught him to sign his name. And I say these things not because, whoa, but because I want you to know that there's a lot of people, we a lot of times think about people who are unschooled as ignorant, but they are not. They are not ignorant, they're very knowledgeable. The first person who would listen to my poems and me reciting was my father. And I was like, to him, it was like I was the jewel of the family because I had learned a few words.
Yeah, and by the way, for my listeners, I have put in the episode descriptions for this one and my previous conversation with Gabriella a number of the titles that she's published or has been part of publishing, and as mentioned, she's published poet, Ph.D. Educator, scholar, etc., and in multiple fields actually. So I really would encourage my listeners to check out the work that Gabriella has done. But what this leads me to is a question before we get into more of the topic for this interview. Is just how does your discipline, how has that kind of shaped or well, let me phrase it two ways because it's kind of two sides of the same coin. How has that shaped your sense of some of the topics we're talking about here? Um, America, making America great, problems in America, race, prejudice, language, ethnicity, borders, all those things, history. How does your discipline affect how you view those things, and how about how the flip side, how those things affect how you apply your discipline?
Mhm.
Because it really is in tandem, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I think that um, you could not really um, understand people if you don't understand their language
Hmm.
and the concepts where they're coming from. And growing up bilingually, mostly my first language is Spanish.
Hmm.
But there's in this country, there's all kinds of hierarchies,
Yeah.
and we tokenize writers of color.
Mm,
We have one or two for every, Filipino American, Korean American, Chicana, certainly, we have one. So when I got to Stanford, I went there because I had not seen in the literature
mm,
the lives of some of my family members.
hmm.
I had not seen the Mexican male represented as what he is,
Yeah. So
cooking so
stories
his
weren't getting,
wife would
yeah,
not on
stories weren't
weekends.
getting told or represented.
No,
Hmm.
and they were being bastardized, frankly.
Mm,
The image of Mexican men and women
mm,
has been bastardized
okay.
all along. There were no,
Like stereotypical pictures of
absolutely,
this
there
is
were no people in church passing the baby,
right.
helping the parents. Um,
So a single
Mexican
dimension, not a
people,
multiple dimension picture of
yes,
humans. Yeah.
Mexican people are so generous.
Mm,
That was not in the literature, and it was not even in the Mexican literature. I had not really in the Chicano literature.
okay. Yeah.
And so I wanted to see that. I wanted to study that, and I wanted to talk about it,
Hmm.
put that conversation. Um, I really want to reformulate our views in the United States after having done all of that. I also published Presumed Incompetent. I'm the first editor, invited several other people that I believe have changed the way that people of color in academia are seen
Mm.
and the struggles that we have to go
Say the
through.
title of that work again. So
Presumed Incompetent.
presumed
There's
incompetent,
subtitles for both books, but
of
with
course.
that, you will find it in your library.
Yeah. And
But
that's
I
again, that's
really,
in the podcast description, just for my
yes, there's
listeners.
many reviews of it. That's not what I want to be known for.
Okay.
But um, all these words that we have, nutrition is finally in the last 15 years reformulating what is really nutrition for people and what is not. But we have to do the same thing for trash, for beauty, for kindness.
Mm.
We have to rewrite
Thinking
the
in
whole
terms of just
thing.
how language functions, right? And how
Yes,
we use it and what we
absolutely.
mean. Yeah. Okay.
Because language, we have to unlearn
Hmm.
the feelings. Words have feelings.
Hmm.
And in each language, words have feelings. I know that as a child who didn't speak English but had to negotiate
Right.
um, uh, my father's my father buying a car from a dealer. I was
Right. You
five.
had to navigate between those two worlds.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we in the United States have to really be careful with the words that we have highlighted, like underprivileged,
Mm, mm, mm.
ignorant. In when I was a teacher, another example is limited English proficient,
Yeah.
LEPs, right? Why
Yeah.
limited? Why limited? They're not empty vessels. They
Right.
don't come to school. They know other things.
Hmm.
I had a boy arrive when I was teaching junior high, and he had stayed in Mexico with his grandparents because his parents couldn't bring him. He was undocumented. When they brought him finally, he was so restless in my classroom because he had spent entire days sheep herding.
Hmm. Yeah.
But he was the smartest kid in that classroom.
Mm.
So what would I do? I would have him go run laps for 15 minutes,
Okay.
and then he could sit down and listen.
Because that would kind of get him alert. Is that the idea?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
his energy
Yeah.
used up his ability to breathe and be who he had been,
Yes.
right?
Got
To
it.
not take away what
Kind
people
of
have
getting in
been.
touch with his embodied
Yes.
reality
And
in the
what they're
rest of his
bringing
life.
to the plate.
Interesting. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
everything we've talked about. So the main word that I would use in terms of language is unlearning.
Hmm.
And what literature does for us is it helps us unlearn.
That's right.
I have my students write reflections at the end of every quarter of what that class did for them.
Mm.
Because I think it's real easy to say, oh, I learned nothing in that class.
Yeah.
But I'd like for them to reflect on who they were before and
Before and
after.
then. Hmm.
Yeah, we read a book. I use a book by Elena Maria Viramontes. I have translated her collection, The Moths and Other Stories.
Mm.
Initially, they gave the translation to a Spanish woman. Elena Maria read it and she said to me, "This seems awkward, but I'm not an expert in Spanish." It was.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so we need to see who's doing the work, who are they representing. This book is so important. Literature shows us all these things that I've mentioned to you.
Uh,
History, the displacement of Chicanos. Um, it shows us, it has us, so this book that I was mentioning, their dogs came with them. It's a novel
okay.
by Elena Maria Viramontes.
Okay. Their dogs came
And
with them.
their dogs. Why? Because she's really talking about um, the colonization of the mind
Mm. Mm.
of Mexicans, of the original Mexicans, the indigenous people, when they saw a horse.
Mm. Mm.
They saw the Spaniards came and, you know, they looked at the horse
Mm.
and perhaps they thought that was the dog.
Right. Right.
And if the dog is this size,
We
so
wouldn't have
it's
had a
this
word for it. Hmm.
psychological colonization.
Hmm.
And that's what happens to us
Yeah.
constantly. So that's an epigraph at the beginning. It's not about that, but it is about that because the story takes place in LA. It's the lives of four women, and it begins with telling the story of the freeways,
Yeah.
which other people have mentioned. But really, it's through Chicano literature that we see how they got rid of entire communities
Mm.
to build those freeways that we so enjoy in LA,
Yeah.
that are always backed up. But that
Yes. So enjoy loosely.
they
Yeah.
took away
Hmm.
the homes of all these people that
Right.
had been living there. And that's the beginning, the
Yeah.
elderly woman with dementia putting post-its on things because she doesn't remember the names,
Okay.
but very real, but also telling a story and a history of social situations. um,
Yeah. Can,
so that's what literature. There's another one,
yeah.
I'll tell you another little
Yeah.
example.
Hmm.
Rigoberto Gonzalez has Men Without Bliss.
Okay.
And in that collection, he talks about one of the short stories is The Abortionist Lover.
Mm. Mm.
And the abortionist lover is a Mexican immigrant man who's gay. And
Mm.
who is the abortionist? The abortionist is a doctor,
Mm.
a white, rich doctor that pays for all the bills
Mm.
and has this man living in his house, but he also sexually abuses him.
Mm.
He abuses him in many ways.
Mm.
And it addresses various very serious things: suicide, immigration, homophobia.
Mhm.
But it also questions who is. I love that story because it's not just about the poor Mexican immigrant gay man who's escaping his family in Mexico. It's about why is this man so violent?
Mm.
What do we do to clinics, right? To abortion clinics? We
Mm.
threaten those doctors.
Mhm.
We mistreat them. Where did this abortionist come from?
Mm.
So it's really having us question the whole American culture.
Of yeah, the sort of violence and oppression and
Yes.
can
And reality, because for many years, we really, just like African American literature, we didn't really tell the real story because we were protecting our people.
Hmm.
Now it's a beautiful moment in Chicano literature, Mexican American Chicano literature, because we are able to tell these things, to tell these stories. Anyway, I don't want to
No,
get
no, it's
going
great.
because I
I
can
want to,
talk about literature
no, no,
forever.
I want to pick up on that from
Mhm,
two angles. First is just, I think the importance of telling stories. I mean, one of the whole purposes of this podcast is to foster the sort of empathy and compassion that of towards people we are not familiar with or whose backgrounds we don't share or whatever, and that can go multiple directions, right? And story can do that, art can do that, literature can do that, and I think you're making a really really important point. I want to tie in to the language aspect of this from a couple of different perspectives, if it's okay. And I hadn't necessarily thought about this, but I think it just is a natural thing. I there's a lot of emphasis right now in our country on, English only, and we're only going to do this. English is going to be the only language, not just the official language, et cetera, et cetera. And and there's a couple of different things that I want to get at with this. When Before I moved overseas, and I did a course on how to learn language, how to acquire language. Wasn't teaching me a language, but it was how to acquire it. One of the things that our instructor said, which I thought was brilliant, was he said, when you learn another language, you gain another soul.
mhm,
And and so part of my argument about why more languages is better in a country, and most countries are, as you know, Gabriella, most countries are multilingual, right? Um,
mhm,
and but one of the it's actually impoverishing to
mhm.
try to narrow everything to one language. It's enriching to actually have multiple languages. There are things that people can say and experience and feel in other languages that don't actually translate
Absolutely.
to another language.
I
So
have
there's
several
more to
poems
human
about,
experience. There's more to human
yeah.
experience than we
Mhm.
know if we only know the world through a single language. So I just and you work in that intersectionality of languages. That's part of, one of my favorite collections of your poems is actually really exploring a lot of that. And so I just wanted to highlight it. I'm not really asking a question, but I'm sure you have thoughts. So um,
Well, first I want to finish with our last section. I want to add,
yeah,
because
please.
I don't feel I really answered it. Why did I want to become a literary critic after being a high school French teacher?
Right, right. Okay,
Um,
good, good.
um, well, because we were not represented,
Mm,
but also because of the tokenism.
okay.
And what I did, I saw that there was only one Chicana author that people were writing about, teaching, etc.
Mm,
And what I've done is that with the University of Arizona Press, I published two books, and I'm working on a third one
okay.
about two additional authors. Uh,
Mm,
one of them that I mentioned, Elena Maria Viramontes, and then Norma Cantu, who wrote Canicula Snapshots of a Girlhood en la Frontera. And she's the first one that got a title, thanks to Corman McCarthy, right? Because he begins a novel in Spanish.
mm.
So she got to have her title in both languages because that's
Yes.
how many of our communities
Blended.
speak.
Yeah.
But these two authors are complex, incredible. Viramontes, has been the director of creative writing at Cornell. They're incredible people. I hope you read them.
Okay.
But they were not
Being seen.
selected. There were not books about them,
Mm,
about their writing. So that's what I did. When I got to Stanford, I looked at that and I said, I am going to expand this tokenistic. It's not possible that we are now probably a fifth of more of the US population, and that there's one or five or 10, writers that
yeah.
are looked at, and there should be hundreds.
Right.
So that's my main goal about being a critic.
Yeah, yeah,
About language, there's so much I could say. In Mexico,
sure,
there's
yeah.
68 languages that have survived 500 and I don't know how many,
Hmm.
35 years of colonialism.
Yeah.
And I got to go to the Tepehuano part, which is, I was so proud to be there. And it's our ancestral land for people from Durango, and for me in particular.
Mm.
And these communities are run by indigenous people, and they have men and women, right, running them.
Mm.
And uh, I learned now I carry pumpkin seeds with me all day. It's a
Okay.
superfood. And all
Okay.
these women who've had 5 children and, work 16 hours a day were eating pumpkin seeds all day.
Okay.
So one thing I learned.
Okay.
But I'm giving you that example
Mm.
to tell you that we have learned so little from
Mm.
the indigenous world.
Mm.
And frankly, we are dummies. We have not taken advantage in
Yeah.
the Western world of all this incredible knowledge
Mm.
in because it's not just the language, it's the knowledge.
Yeah.
In Zapotec, they just published the first dictionary at UCLA.
Mm.
There's words to say um, thank you for different things,
Mm.
to say I love you in different. In the United States, we love our shoes and we love our mother,
Right.
you know?
Right. Right.
So how can that be right?
Yeah.
How can I love my sweaty shoes the same as my mother, right? No. But they have words to thank you for helping them build their home, for
Mm.
bringing food to them, for being their friend, for
So it's a rich
helping cook,
vocabulary.
helping make a community thing.
Mm.
In the United States, it's just we always we need to learn about community from
Mm.
indigenous communities in all of the Americas.
Well,
Because in the United States and with capitalism,
mhm.
we only think of maybe our family, maybe not even our family, just ourselves.
Very individualistic. Yeah. Hmm.
Absolutely individualistic.
Yeah. Mhm.
And the other thing, and how that goes and transfers into our way of being, is that, in particular, what I found here in the Northwest is a compartmentalization.
Mm.
So that I see that in how people interact.
Mm.
They have these friends, but these friends will not meet these other friends.
Yeah. That's
I've never
yeah.
seen that before.
Walled off parts of
You're
life.
gonna you're gonna get together with these people, but you will not, introduce them to your other best friends.
Mm. Mm.
And that is so un-Mexican that I am.
Well,
It
yeah.
was really hard for me to understand that compartmentalization,
Mm.
because we in community, I mean, I just found out that a friend of mine has a doctor that we needed
Mm.
that is a very close friend,
Mm.
but I never knew that.
Never knew. Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that language
Hmm.
trickles down to
Yeah.
behavior.
That's right, because it carries a whole world with it, right?
Yeah,
And then how we use it reinforces
yeah.
that. I think too, if I could just highlight, because this has come up in some of the prior episodes of the podcast when I was talking with Joey Williams and his
Mhm,
leadership among indigenous peoples in California, et cetera. Several things you mentioned in passing are things that we explored there. So, for example, the indigenous wisdom and
mhm,
the need to learn. But if we have the attitude that we know and we're superior, et cetera, and if we, if we're depending on certain language superiority. We never do the learning. Secondly, you referred to men and women, indigenous men and
mhm.
women running the
Absolutely.
yeah, and he talked a lot about the the egalitarian sort of leadership, which of course we're in a
mhm,
period in America where we're erasing women from websites and doing all sorts of things like that. Um, and so just that whole and the individualism. He talked a lot about that, and as opposed to even viewing the natural world itself
mhm.
as these are our relatives, right? That nature is our relative and our mother and
Our
brothers and
mother.
sisters and
Mhm,
everybody are, we're all, yes, we all have our own indigenous roots that it's really important to tap into, but we're
mhm,
humans and we're
mhm,
all relatives on the planet. So I think these are just really important things. I didn't want listeners to just kind of skip over it. I wanted to underline these things because they're
mhm.
probably patterns in in the podcast, I think. But
We
but I
need to
really
change
appreciate it.
our attitudes
Hmm.
towards ways of being also.
Yeah. Hmm.
That, oh, that's indigenous, almost, oh, that's Mexican.
Right.
No, that's a better way of doing things. So let's adapt.
Hmm. Yeah.
Let's do it. What does it matter what it is?
Hmm.
Cecilia Vicuña, a critic and editor and wonderful poet, she talks about being that all of us are not biologically mestizos,
Mm.
which I think most of us are. I have every blood in me
Okay.
from every race. I think most of us are, but she makes a real important point that in Latin America, people are, and I think here too, I expanded to here,
Okay.
but we are cultural mestizos.
Mm.
You talk to whites
Explain that.
from
Yeah.
California,
Hmm.
they are Latinoized.
Mm. Without realizing.
They have barbecues and they invite everybody. And you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
realize it,
Interesting.
but I
It's
realize it
fascinating
because I moved from
because you see
California
it.
to the
Yeah.
Northwest.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so this cultural mestizo
It's
that
fascinating.
we've all taken little things from other cultures that benefit us.
Yeah.
Um, but we need to do more. And I
But
said
what if
this
we
to you
did it
before.
intentionally and more broadly, right?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Why not have public showers for people?
Mm.
Why not have public bathrooms? Why not have shelters? Why not use our basements as shelters for people? Why do we need a big, enormous house,
Mm.
you know, just for us? Why not invite the person to lunch?
Mm.
These things that some people do. But anyway, we need
But
to get
yeah.
back into what you wanted to do with this
No, but this
episode.
is great. Actually, with probably without thinking about it, you're actually segueing to a topic you and I discussed that we
Mhm,
would return to at the end of our last episode or interview. We were talking about the fact that in a so-called Christian environment, right, we people find it so hard to appreciate like self-sacrifice, et cetera, when Christianity sort of puts that at the center, right?
He
And
was
but
crucified.
yes, giving up a life, right, for others.
Yes.
And the paradox of all of that to be in such an individualistic society and all these examples you were just giving about, our basements and inviting people to a meal and, all these sorts of and public showers and public restrooms. And I can hear the resistance of people being like, no, because, how people should,
Mhm,
get their own bathroom and they should do this and that and all of that. So I want to segue to this whole weird relationship that America has with Christianity. And
mhm,
it's both in our ancient history, right? Because whether it was Protestant Christianity coming over to the sort of Eastern colonies, or whether it was what we would now call Roman Catholic
mhm,
Christianity coming in with particularly Spanish colonialism through the South and the West, lesser extent of the Russian Orthodox. It was very small, but anyway,
mhm,
Christianity's been sort of part of that, and it's been not a happy thing actually for many people. And
mhm,
now we're at the cusp of we're in a season of American history where there's all this talk about America is a Christian nation, and I've even heard politicians saying it was really made only for Christians, and freedom of religion was supposed to be
Wow.
only for the different denominations of Christianity. I've heard them saying these things
Mhm.
as if the founding fathers were all these Bible believing Protestant Christians, and they just weren't. So there's this paradoxical relationship with Christianity, but at the heart of it, some of what you were bringing out today and in a previous conversation was this whole like hypocritical thing about claiming Jesus but not acting like
Uh,
Jesus. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And it's just gotten even weirder in the last 10 years, you know that. Um, there's so many ways to cut that pie.
yeah. So uh, just grab a knife and try.
Well, it's been
Yeah,
it's first of all, it's been a man's world.
yeah.
And it's these white men wanting to keep power to themselves
Hmm.
that have excluded everybody else. And when I talked about, I was so emotional when I was at that meeting where there were men and women running because you have to go through them to get
Yeah,
into their community in
yeah,
that
yeah.
the Peruano people in Durango in Mexico, because it was so empowering to me to see
Mm,
those women that we never see. We don't see those women, indigenous women leaders,
mm,
saying, no, you are not going to do this,
mm,
or intervening for others. We don't have that example here.
mm,
We allow a lot of the people we allow to rule
mm.
have been allowed to rule, whether it in any institution, you
Sure.
know,
Hmm.
whether you're part of academia, they've been allowed to rule, usually, not always, but usually because they can be convinced
Mm.
or they're acting like the white man.
So they can be convinced, meaning they can be co-opted into
Co-opted, yes,
um,
yes,
agreeing with what we want or something. Is that
yes.
okay? Compliant,
And so we need to look at that, I
which
think
kind of gets
it's,
back to the tokenism you were talking about earlier, I think.
well,
Well,
Rachel,
okay.
several feminists have talked about the fact that for 2,000 years, women have been um, ridden by men.
Mm, yeah,
So we need to look at
literally
that
and
too. Our
figuratively.
entire
Yes.
behavior,
Yes.
right? So if you act like a man, I've been questioned many times. Why do you wear indigenous clothing? Why do you,
Mm,
wear those earrings? Why, stuff like that.
mm.
A secretary told me once, that's not how a professor dresses.
Ah,
So
ah,
we have certain ways
yeah.
of being. And in the second wave and third wave of feminism, yes, women used to wear suits to be,
Trying
but
to,
at some level, we're
yeah.
still doing that
Mm,
behavior wise.
mm, mm,
We're still uh, disagreeing with different forms of organization.
yeah.
Like this is we still have one answer, and that's my questioning. And
Mm,
that answer, that way of doing things, is a Western male way of doing things.
yeah. So like in our the way we run organizations or
Absolutely.
universities or what or even or families or our
Mhm,
institutions. Yeah.
mhm,
Hmm.
mhm,
Yeah, and then so back to the tokenism and needing to fit in, et cetera. You get promoted, you get positions if you're a person
mhm.
of color or you're a woman or some other, quote unquote divergent identity. And I'm using that in quotes because I'm divergent can be a negative word, and that's not how I'm using it. I'm channeling how, you know,
Yes, I understand.
how the institution views this
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Um, but
And people of
if
color
if
have
you're
had
willing
to
to
do,
comply,
yeah,
you can
yeah,
succeed, quote
yeah,
unquote.
yeah.
But if
And
not, then which basically means if you're a person of color or a woman, you actually have to act as if you're a white male, and kind of adopt those
And you cannot talk about what's wrong with
with that.
the process,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
right.
And so when I was going, up for tenure, whatever you're going up in your own institution, I knew that I had to do 3 times as much work. And
Mm,
so do most people of color.
right. It's a very common story. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah, it
It's
really
like
is.
you already know that because you know that the white guy that started with you doesn't have to do a third as much as you do.
Yeah, right.
So that's important to note, um,
Yeah,
because we need to listen, to really listen to people and how they would be
yeah,
if they were not being looked through a telescope,
right.
being looked at, your behavior, how you behave. Um, I'm a full professor now, so I can do certain things that I couldn't do before.
Or yeah,
Right? I can teach the way that I know how to teach. I know that I'm a master teacher. So this is how I adapt to the students, and this is my philosophy. And I will adapt to the students like I will adapt to the houseless person,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like we adapt to children.
yeah.
50 years ago, we didn't adapt to children.
Hmm. Right. We just expected they would do all the adapting and be seen
Yeah.
and not heard, and
Yes.
yeah.
And in order for us to become,
Yeah.
a great nation,
Mm,
I mean, the Germans have done it, the Swedish have done it. We have to adapt to women who just birthed. We have to adapt.
mm,
Um, we have a sort of inhumane, paternity, maternity leave. Um, Even now that there's places
yeah.
to to nurse your child, but we're still not humane in a
Well,
lot of ways. So in
yeah,
us asking, and where does that history come from? That's why I say that we need to really go down into the roots.
yeah.
We need to look at ways of being
Hmm.
for other people instead of wanting to change them to how do birthing mothers in Northeast India do this?
Hmm. Yeah. Well,
How do women, there's a cuarentena, there's 40 days in Mexican rural,
mm,
uh, where you take care of that mother, where
mm,
people come in to help her, right?
yeah.
I went to work the next day after having a baby
Yeah.
because
Gabrielle.
they were not going to pay me at the community college where I worked. So
Okay.
I was there
You had
and I
to.
was
Yeah.
there and I nursed my baby in front of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what else
And
could you do? Yeah.
yes,
Well, and the irony of this, to just kind of keep this thread going, is that this is in a nation that claims, like, well, to be a Christian nation, and therefore Jesus supposedly is at the center, the one who said, love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, the value generosity, and et cetera.
valued prostitutes, sex workers.
Women hung,
Yeah,
women were his
yeah,
primary support team, according to
yes.
part of the Gospel of Luke. They were the
Yes.
first people to be told about the resurrection and go tell it. So, yeah, it's just to claim that as
Mhm.
the banner for America, but not to be so far from following it. And I a person who would be appalled by our individualism, actually, this Jesus character that
Yes. Mary Magdalene,
Mhm. Mhm. So,
Jesus would be there for sex workers
mhm.
and different genres. Not genres in literature, but
Oh, genres of
genders.
people. Yeah,
Genders. I'm
genders,
speaking in French now.
genre. Yes, yes, yes. And thank you. That's yeah,
Mhm.
that's actually a great
Mhm.
example of
Mhm.
language.
Mhm.
You're talking about genres applying it to people. We
Mhm.
get all hung up on gender, right? But it is
Mhm.
a way of talking about a
Mhm.
genre, a way of being a work of art. Um, anyway,
Yes.
I thought I'll play with that sometime. That's a new idea. I want to, so we've already kind of
We
thrown
we
out.
need to go back.
Yeah. No, no, we've already sort of thrown out the
Mhm.
idea of, okay, this would make America great, that would make America great, etc. Let's actually kind of zero in on this. This will be our last big section of the interview. And you talked as we were getting ready, you talked about Thomas Kuhn and you talked about paradigm shifts. For listeners who may not know, he was sort of the paradigm shifter who brought actually paradigm shift into popular terminology, and we throw it around all the time. Oh, I've had a big paradigm shift and now I'm doing this. But it's actually really important. I know your husband's actually studied this as well.
Well,
But
he's related to Thomas Kuhn.
okay, well
Yes.
that would explain it. But let's, as we sort of talk about what would make America great, I want to talk
Mhm.
about, as I do with in all my interviews,
Mhm.
macro, big picture things,
Yes.
which an individual might look at and say, how can I contribute to that? But
Mhm.
also, but is very important. But also the kind of micro individual things, and some of the things I know you've been thinking about sort of touch on both of those.
Mhm.
Let's just talk, and it all requires a paradigm shift, actually,
Mhm.
of how we think about ourselves, how we think about others, how we think about America, how we think about history, all of
Mhm.
it. So let's just sort of talk about that. And I know you've been thinking a lot about these things, so I'm just going to let you. Don't worry about fitting into
No,
my
please
line. Don't worry
intervene. Please
about being.
intervene.
Am I macro? Am I micro? Don't worry about fitting into my boxes of my paradigm. Don't worry about that. Just do talk about what
Well,
you think would make America great.
yes. If I could, I
Mm,
would do a general study,
mm,
an interdisciplinary study, because, for example, we just talked about prostitution.
mhm,
I was in France when I was 17,
mm,
and you had to have a carte d'identité, so an identity, like a license. And I was amazed in line how once um, this woman in front of me pulled out her carte d'identité, and she was a sex worker. She was a prostitute.
that was right there on the
Yes,
identity.
yes.
Mm,
So
interesting.
that's one example. And what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to say, let's do that. I'm
Yes,
trying to say,
just for the
um,
record, listeners, Gabriella is not here saying we need registered sex workers to make America great. That is not what she's saying.
no,
Right. Make it,
I'm saying that there's all these countries.
mm,
Let's look at Mexico. I am so in love. I really have a
mm,
crush on our new presidenta over there.
okay.
Amazing Jewish Mexican woman
Mm,
giving priority, giving land, um, she wears indigenous clothing everywhere. She's made all her outfits become part, they're weaved from different regions.
mm. It's all
Okay.
part of the
So
message.
I'm saying, look
Yeah,
at these other countries
right, right.
that are living what they say.
Yeah.
We speak through both sides of our mouth
Mm,
and we don't do what we say. She is prioritizing the indigenous because they haven't been prioritized in 530 years.
mm, mm,
And she's saying this is valuable, let's conserve, let's promote our languages. And what I was saying about prostitution in France 40 years ago, we need to look at what other countries are doing.
mm,
How are the Norwegians, how are the Swedish um, dealing with houseless people?
mhm,
They're not letting them die and freeze in those countries that are so cold in the winter.
mm,
No,
mm,
they have created special capsules.
mm.
I always love to read about that
Yeah.
for each person because each person is important.
Mm. mm, mm,
What are we doing? We criticize. I still remember because I talked about this quite a bit. I'm very concerned about mothers, um, single mothers with
mm,
children. Susan Smith, several years ago, drowned her children. She had just broken up with a boyfriend. She was depressed. She didn't find anything, worth living for, obviously. Um, but she also didn't want her children to suffer anymore. That's how I see it as a mother.
mm,
But what did we do?
mm,
We criminalized her,
mm,
right? We all said horrendous things. You can look her up,
mm,
Susan Smith, mother who drowned her children.
mm,
Um, we criminalized her. We are not dealing with mental health since the Reagan years in the 1980s,
mm,
when I used to be a social worker right after college.
yeah,
And we had all kinds of pilot projects. It was a wonderful era to be a social worker, an outreach worker,
right,
anybody in psychology, sociology. Health was thriving in the United States. We were doing so well.
right.
Um, and then we closed all these mental institutions and let them all
Set
out.
everybody quote unquote free. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. But didn't
Because we didn't want to spend money in that. That's what we cut. So I think for the citizens, for whoever's listening to this, we need to protect. So it takes a few dollars from your taxes every year for illness or mental institutions. Yes. Thank you very much. Let's be human. Let's be Christian,
mm.
right? Let's
Well,
be Muslim.
yeah,
Let's take
right.
care of those people,
Generosity.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because they cannot function by
right.
themselves.
And
It's
I
mhm,
want to come back to the Susan Smith example because I think
mhm,
there'll be listeners, especially if they aren't familiar with that story. It's not a story as in like a fiction, folks. It's
mhm.
it's a real thing.
It's real life.
Who might hear that and just, of course, the shock value and the
Mhm,
terror of all of that, and it's a very dark story. And I want to just go back to it for a moment because I think you're making a really important point that I don't want to get lost.
mhm,
There's probably people who will skip over that and hearing you say, well, we just villainized and criminalized and blah
mhm,
blah blah. But I think which we did. I think the point you're making is this insensitivity to issues
mhm,
of mental health, of
mhm,
mental illness, of desperation, of pain, of depression, etc. And the failure, what happens in there is because we see this terrible thing happen and have no capacity to empathize, to put ourselves in another person's position, which doesn't
mhm,
excuse, it doesn't say, oh, well, I guess it was okay, it was understandable. That's not the point. It's the realization that, there but for the grace of God go I. What if I was in that spot?
mhm,
And
mhm. But the point I'm also making,
yeah,
Kevin,
mm,
is where were her neighbors? Where were her relatives
that's
who
really good.
called her a
Mm,
witch, who called her, you know, narcissistic or,
yeah,
you
all
know,
after kind of after the
oversexed?
fact.
Oversexed was one of the,
Uh,
because the boyfriend left. Oh, now she's killing her children.
yeah,
No, I
right.
tell my students, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Hmm.
If you see a woman that is going wacko because she has to take care of three children,
Hmm.
this is the other part of Christianity, Kevin, that I really don't hate, don't support,
Don't,
do hate.
okay. Do hate, don't support. Okay.
Yes,
Hmm.
and that is the guilt.
Mm, mm,
Like going back to, uh, well, she had three children.
hmm.
Why did she have them? No, excuse me. Are you giving up an afternoon or an evening to go tell Susan, I will take care of your children. I'm going to take them to the park for 2 hours and buy them an ice cream.
It gets at that individualism that we were talking
Yes.
about earlier.
Can I do your wash for you? Can I come clean your living room for you?
Yeah. So I
Right?
think one of the things I hear you saying in that, going back to where were her neighbors, et cetera, which is, I think that's a
Where was
powerful
her
question.
town? Where was her town?
Exactly. Where were the support systems
Yeah.
earlier instead of
Mhm.
just, oh, this happened, now we're going to
Mhm.
pile on with everything
Yes.
and not see any kind of, because you're talking about the importance of community. You've mentioned that a number of times in our interviews, the collectivism of
Mhm.
particularly indigenous cultures, uh, Mexican culture, you've mentioned a number of times, the communal way of approaching things. And I think we are
And
still,
the guiltless
yeah,
way of
yes,
dealing
I was
with
going
things.
to come back to that as well.
Going
Yeah,
forward
yeah,
instead of, well, they got pregnant, they have to deal with it.
yeah,
So what?
yeah.
You know?
These are still human beings. How do
Yes.
we respond as
Yes.
human to human?
Yes.
And yeah,
Mhm.
and I think, you mentioned guilt. I think the other side of that is that we, even in criticizing another person like that, we internalize our own guilt, right?
Yes.
And we're operating out of our own guilty conscience without actually facing things. And
We percolate guilt in this country.
mm, say more about that. What do you mean? Yeah.
We're conditional about everything.
Mm,
And in Christianity too. In order to be this, you have to follow this and this and this. At the shelters, many people don't stay at the homeless shelters because if they have this, they cannot come in. If they didn't get in at certain time, they cannot come in. There's so many useless and ridiculous, I'm giving perhaps ridiculous examples, but
no, it's
there
okay.
are ridiculous things of, washing our hands of it.
Yeah.
In our culture, the tough love thing,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
Yeah.
let them, be in the streets and, do whatever if they want to run away.
Hmm.
I wrote a whole collection, the Runaway Poems, which I'm sending to you.
Okay.
And it's a whole collection when my son ran away when
Mm,
he was 13.
mm,
And it was that whole collection analyzing and putting on the table something that, like abortion,
hmm,
it's these topics that we don't talk about.
hmm.
When he ran away, I found out that half the people or most of the people I knew a teenager or about a teenager that had run away,
But
but we
never
didn't
talked
talk
about it.
about that.
Yeah.
Nobody talks, nobody says, "Oh, my son ran away when
Yeah.
he was 16." So you don't feel like you're the most horrible parent.
Yeah.
And
And
people,
that's that
several
guilt.
people asked me,
Hmm.
why did he run away?
Right.
Like I'm to blame for him running away.
Right.
So that's what I'm talking about in
Yeah.
terms of the culpability and guilt.
Guilt that we
Um,
carry and we put on people. Yeah.
yes, not only us,
Right.
which makes me sad because I've analyzed this quite a bit.
Mm,
Um, it's not only us, we put it on other people.
yeah.
So the girl got pregnant at 15. Whose fault is it, right?
Hmm.
So they smoke pot. Whose fault is it? You didn't as if you could supervise a human being 24 hours a day.
Right.
You know, um, we need to get rid of guilt
Mm,
somewhat. I mean, some guilt might be good for the concoction, but
yeah.
not all of it.
And again, I think at the heart of the big paradigm shift that I think
Mhm,
you've talked about, and Joey Williams talked about it as well, is this shift from individualism
mhm,
and to communal, from where do we put the blame to how do we share
mhm,
the responsibility. Um, those kinds of things are just huge. And the other paradigm shift we talked about earlier with language and culture and the humility to learn from other
mhm,
cultures to to value the richness of multiple languages. Those are paradigm shifts. They are they're different ways. It's like when you suddenly shift your perspective and you see
Mm-hmm.
something in a painting you didn't see before. It's that kind of a thing. And these are actually things that would make America great, and
Yeah.
they're
But
rooted
also,
in basic empathy and compassion.
yes, but
Yeah.
also, we are so rich.
Hmm.
I'm able to talk to you on Zoom and
I
do
know.
this interview. We can research anything. For those of us who, had a typewriter
You
and
remember.
didn't have
Yeah.
internet,
Yeah.
I wake up every day so happy,
Yeah.
to be able
For the
to
listeners
research.
who can't see us, we are older, so we
Well, we're
remember.
not that old, Kevin,
No,
but
I
what
know.
I'm saying is
Yeah.
things have
But
changed
we
a lot.
remember those days.
Yes, and now we are capable of researching anything. And that's what I was saying before. I would do a study of best practices in the world,
Mm.
humane practices. That's what I would do.
As a way to
There's
serve this
something
world,
I really
make us
love. Just,
great. Let's, yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
In terms of saying positive things about the Northwest, there's something I love. At first, I didn't know what it was, but there were always things on weekends that people had left outside.
Hmm.
And it was things they didn't want that were free
You
to
could
anyone who
take.
passed.
Hmm.
And it was not a sale. They also do that through organizations in neighborhoods. But
Hmm.
I was just, you know, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
The other thing I love that's I think it's caught on in most of the United States, the book libraries, making a little.
The
So we
little
have some beautiful
neighborhood
things like
ones. Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
What would I have given who had
Take one.
no access
One.
to books,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
For a children's book when I was little, right? So people think that books are accessible to everybody, but they're not,
Yeah.
especially now in this fear-filled nation, right?
Well,
Where
yeah.
you're afraid to have a library card to be identified.
Yeah.
But those are some beautiful things that I absolutely love. The fact that when I've learned this and I love this, that when you lose a glove, I've gone back several hours later on a path, in a park, and I lost a glove and I found it because people had put it up for me to see that the glove was there for me.
In case they come back, they'll find it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
So that way of being,
have
there's
the,
so
yeah.
many beautiful things, and I think that's
We have it in
Scandinavian.
us, right? We have the
Yes,
capacity in
yes.
us to
I think that's
think
Scandinavian,
of it.
Northern European, that we give whatever we don't use. And it's beautiful because it has no attachment.
Hmm.
You don't have to thank the people, you don't have to feel grateful to them for the rest of your life because you got a chair from them, right?
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. It's wonderful practices, and there's so many things. But I think a book, a book should be written
Mm.
about how we could become much better.
Well, yeah, and I loved the idea of I didn't the coin didn't drop for me until you said it a second time. The this general multidisciplinary study looking for
Mhm,
best practices, which means because I think sometimes the what's it going to take to make America great conversation happens like so much of America purely with this, how are we going to figure this out?
mhm,
As opposed to, lots of people in the world have figured out a lot of things.
mhm,
How about we learn from that? Like what's working other places? But
mhm.
but again, I think the key is something you've brought up multiple times, and it comes back to this whole empathy and compassion and caring for others and a communal approach and not just individualism.
And not being so arrogant
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
nation, like we're number one.
Oh,
No, because
yes.
the moment that you don't want to learn from others, that you think you have it all figured out,
No.
that is a moment we've already lost,
Yeah.
right?
I think that's really well said. Yeah.
Mhm. There's one last thing I want to tell
Yeah.
you to
Yeah. And
fix
then I'll probably start, please do. And then I'm going to start wrapping
hunger.
this up. But
When I
yeah.
was little, So I wish I had a way of, controlling all these things. When I was little in Durango, there was a gentleman who used to stop by Don Juan. In fact, yesterday was his Saint's Day. So on his Saint's Day, we of course would have given him more. But this man was in his probably late 80s,
Mm,
and he would come to our house every day after lunch
mm,
around 3.
yeah,
And we had left, even though we could have had another taco.
yeah,
We had left him some food,
something. Hmm.
and he would pick it up every day. That was our response. So I want to assign every
Hmm.
American home, because if you're able to fix a sandwich, you can fix a sandwich for a third person. But
Hmm.
if we connected with that person, that we know that Don Juan is going to come and don't eat it all, right?
Right,
You have to leave something for, then it's good for the family,
right.
because the children grow up knowing that it's not just them in the world,
Sure.
that
Hmm.
they won't starve if they don't get a latte that day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It helps them be selfless.
And
And it's good for fixing hunger, because you're connecting those people.
yeah.
And yes, he came to us until he died. We
Mhm.
were the people that were feeding him lunch
Right.
and more.
Well, and you gave an example before we began recording this episode about just in your car, you carry bananas and fruit and other healthy things to give to people who might be out, and you've talked
Mhm,
about the experience of someone just so hungry that they,
mhm,
how much they appreciated that, and I think that it's a mindset
mhm,
that is again communal and empathetic. I think as I get prepared to close, because of I'm speaking to an artist and a poet, I want to use a sort of example from the world of uh, of the arts, and I'm going to use a Woody Guthrie story here,
mhm,
um, because I think it really highlights some of what we're trying to talk about. So one of his most famous songs is a song called Deportee, or
mhm,
Plane Wreck at Los Gatos
mhm,
Canyon, something like that. It's got multiple titles. The popular versions of that, which were done by very famous musicians, Joan Baez and others, the popular version of that puts it as a song that's about them. There were these workers who were being flown back to Mexico from Northern California after working in the fields, and the plane crashed. And
mhm,
what really upset Woody was that the the white crew were named in the news clippings, and
mhm.
then the rest was just, oh, and I think
Absolutely.
32 deportees. No names, no nothing, right? Most of this, and it's a very beautiful but very simple song,
Mhm,
and the popular versions all put it in third person. It's about these deportees. And but when his original version was he sings it as if he's one of them.
mm.
And that's the difference between
Yes.
maybe caring about others, and
Mhm.
actually putting ourselves in the position of somebody else. And when he first sang it, he did it as he was one of them.
Wonderful. Mm.
And so I actually got in touch with the descendants of Woody and got permission to sing his original version. So I've been able to put
Wonderful.
that out on YouTube in my own way, etc. Because I thought singing it the other way
Mhm,
misses actually
mhm.
what he was trying to do.
The humanizing of
Yeah,
those people. Yeah.
I'm one of them,
Mhm,
instead of just because I think so often right now in America, the what will make us great? Well, how do we take care of these people? How do we do that? What's the best way to do this? What's instead of saying we are we,
mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think what you've said about language and actually, Gabriella, just your whole approach to human beings and people, I think speaks volumes about empathy and putting yourself in the position of other people. And I'm I think that is like a starting point of whatever programs and big macro conversations we have about social stuff and political strategies and all that sort of stuff. If it comes from this
Mhm,
inner genuine connection with other people, then
mhm.
it'll be okay, I guess is what I know that sounds simplistic, but anyway, that's some of
And
what
I
I think
also want to
about.
say that the best human beings I've ever met, and that's why I live in the United States,
Mm.
are here.
Mm,
So we can do this. We
we
can do
can.
this. I have one line from one of my poems.
Please.
I am the sight of your love, earth.
Mm. Say it
And
again. Say the line again, please.
I am the sight. Soy la sede. I'm translating as
Yeah, yeah, please.
de tu amor. Soy la sede de tu amor, tierra. I am the sight of your love, earth.
Mm, thank you.
So we are who need to take care of the earth.
Yeah.
Mhm. I will never forget when I used to make burritos. When I was a graduate student at Stanford, I thought, what can I do? So I used to take they probably sue me for that now, Cabrillo College, the community college where I work part-time. I used to take the coffee pot and I
Mm,
used to make coffee and take burritos. What I could afford is, oh, I can afford $25 this weekend. And I'd go buy potatoes and eggs and make burritos for these men that were just waiting to work in the strip mall.
mm,
And a lot of them would ask me, what church are you coming from?
right.
And yes, I'm a staunch Catholic, but it's important that people don't think that we come from a church.
This wasn't a program.
No.
Right. Right.
And what I realized at the end is that my burritos didn't matter. What they really wanted was to hold my babies.
Mm,
Because what
mm.
So we need to really look at the needs of people.
Human connection.
Yes,
It was the
they
human.
wanted, they had no other way of touching babies
Yeah.
that were the age of their own
Mm,
little sons in Guatemala or El Salvador or Mexico.
yeah.
So, yeah, very
Powerful picture.
important. Mm.
That's a really powerful picture. And we've all got the equivalent
Mhm.
of those things to offer. Maybe we
Absolutely.
goes, but and
Absolutely.
we all have the equivalent of
Mhm.
humanizing our encounters
Mhm.
with human beings. And
Mhm.
yeah, that would, I know it sounds simplistic, that would make America great.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I think that's a beautiful image as we close, to be honest. I think that's really beautiful. So, Gabriella, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
given
Thank you,
a lot to think
Kevin.
about, and I'm sure our listeners as well. So, thank
We're
you.
still the same.
Mm, yeah.
40 years later, 50
Still
years
the
later.
same and yet so different, right? And growing. And tomorrow will be different too. So hopefully more
Yes.
human. Yeah.
Joy to all that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of concluding comments as I tee up the next episode, but also conclude these conversations with Gabriela. And I think you've probably picked up on the whole emphasis on empathy and compassion, the way that that can be cultivated even in daily encounters, as the final few moments of our time together indicated, and probably just in her whole approach as well. And one of the things I want to highlight about that, I don't know if you picked it up, but she talks about the fact that while there's a lot that we talked about here in terms of what could make America great, Gabrielle also emphasizes, some of the most wonderful people in the world are people that I have met here. And I think it's possible in this dichotomized, divided environment we're in America to hold those two things together as we think about celebrating what is good in America while still asking what would make us great. And one of the things that I wanted to emphasize is this whole place of impoverishment that happens when we overemphasize becoming monocultural and assimilation and monolingual versus the enrichment that happens when we actually engage in a multicultural life and welcome the insights of other peoples and languages. And this is a domain in which Gabriella works. And I'm going to take the liberty of actually reading a portion of one of her poems called Tamed Tongues. And it comes from a collection called How Many Indians Can We Be? I've put the information about how to find that book, or at least information about the book, in the podcast description. This is just a portion of that poem. What we share in common amongst the seas of languages that detonate difficulty on the plane, culturally, is that we are mestizos. We are all tamed by the language we work in. 1 billion Indians and 50 million Latinos with a dilemma of what step to take first in saying, I'll pause it there, but I'm just struck by that phrase. We're all tamed by the language we work in, and perhaps part of the path to a richer, more robust greatness is to untame ourselves through a welcoming of different cultures and experiences and ways of seeing the world which languages represent. Now, in the next set of interviews, I'm going to be talking with Tamara Lanier, a descendant of enslaved peoples, and asking some of these same questions. What would make America great? Hope to see you then. Thank you. Maybe someday in America, another day in America, maybe someday in America,